What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the GM Sports Channel. I am Christian DeBlock alongside two of my good friends and co-hosts on Wingers and Defenders, which I will put in the link in the description below. This is Joe and Jake, and we will be discussing my team, Liverpool FC, and just recapping their entire season and my thoughts, their thoughts, and just go along with whatever we want. So I'll just get it started. So last week, Liverpool clinched the title. Not by their own performance, but thank you. But it was a title that was clinched by not them, but Chelsea. Another big point for that for me and all three of us is we're all American, and Christian Pulisic was a big part in that game and finishing off Manchester City's season as a possible reigning champion once again. But overall, great season. Can't really complain in the slightest. Had a few blemishes, but in reality, dropped points against United in October at Old Trafford. And the other games we dropped were a loss at Watford in February, possibly, I believe it was. Very bad game at Vicarage Road. Struggled. Couldn't put the ball away. We were, at that point, playing pretty poorly. We were pretty all exhausted. In hindsight, there was a bunch of games in that stretch. We lost to Atletico Madrid twice in that stretch. We dropped out of the FA Cup to Chelsea at that point. Earlier in the season, we had lost in the Carabao Cup, which we put out our 15-year-olds, pretty much our entire academy was out there and lost 5-0 to Aston Villa, who are awful in the Premier League. And the other two things we did was we won the Super Cup early against Chelsea on penalties. Tammy Abraham missed the last one, and Adrian was the hero at that point and is not the hero anymore, especially in the Champions League. And we also won the Club World Cup in December, I believe, which we got by. Firmino was clutch in 2 games and showed why he's one of the best center forwards, whatever you want to call him. He's not a striker. He's a center forward. But he's very underrated and has done a lot of good things in the Liverpool shirt. But overall, besides today, which we will also discuss, which was an absolute awful performance from Liverpool in some ways, but you understand it. We lost 4-0 to Manchester City, and they pretty much ripped us apart. Phil Foden, upon others, Raheem Sterling, Kevin De Bruyne, you name it, they're loaded. They will be right back in it next year. But overall, a great season. There were close times where we probably shouldn't have won games, which people call us Liverpool instead of Liverpool, which you can debate whether or not you want it. The biggest ones that come to my head at the moment are the Manchester City game, which the ball came off Trent's arm. Whether he could have got it out of the way or not, who knows. Then Sergio Aguero decided to berate the ref the entire way back the field, and Fabinho scored his best goal of the season. He scored pretty much a similar goal against Palace to begin, or the second game of their Project Restart. But that was a fantastic goal. But like I said, people were calling us Liverpool because of that specific game, which was in November, which pretty much put us in great position to ultimately win the title, which is now in the around 20 points ahead of Man City. At that point, it was about 6 possibly. Other big games that were pivotal with VAR, I guess, in that sense, was the Leicester game at home, which at the time they were in second place. City were in third, which they were horrible at the beginning. And Mane draws a penalty, which now is being called a flopper and a diver. But overall, and then Milner steps up, scores a penalty, and we get 3 points instead of 1. But overall, I mean, I can't complain. Personally, as a Liverpool fan, we can see what the Arsenal and Tottenham's supporters have to say about Liverpool. But overall, for me, I can't complain at all.
So, shout out Liverpool. Happy for my guy, Christian. They deserved it. Call it Liverpool all you want. Doesn't really matter because they were absolutely dominant this year. I think Klopp proved why he's arguably the best manager in the league. I mean, I think we can't go back to 2019 on this 2018-2019 season on this one. Klopp and his Liverpool team, basically the exact same side they are now. They got 97 points, I believe. They competed for the title. They were almost there, just a slip up against City that really cost them that. And I think Klopp progressed as a manager from then. and he was already a great manager, but he put it to the top now. He knew exactly where he was at with his team. He's like, this is the same team we have last year. I know my tactics I want to use for this team now. And because of that, they were able to ransack the league. They were unstoppable. I mean, yeah, that Trent play, salty because you know what happened with me today. But at the same time, the rule is that if it wasn't a lead up to the goal, I mean, I don't remember the play exactly, but if it wasn't a lead up to a direct scoring play, it's okay. It's legal. Is Mane a flopper? He absolutely is a flopper, and he's a cheat. I want to like Mane. I will never forgive him for the Champions League final, specifically kicking the ball into Sissoko's armpit. I won't forgive him for
Oh,
that.
no.
But yeah, he's a great player. I can't deny Mane's greatness, and I want to like him because he seems like a cool guy, and he's just an awesome player. Him and Salah on the wings. You have Firmino, who I think is a very perfectly rated striker. I mean, if you look at how Liverpool fans rate him, they overrate him as heck. And then you got everyone else who thinks he's a bum when he's really not. So I think he's perfectly rated. He's a good striker, center forward, who could press defensively, which is one of the hallmarks of Liverpool. They press you up top, they force turnovers, and then their defensive line, you have a Virgil van Dijk, who was a Ballon d'Or candidate from a center back position. So I think they're a perfect team, and honestly, I think they have a chance as long as there's not fatigue in the locker room and everything. They could compete for a title again next year, and I wouldn't be surprised. And yeah, I mean, they could have went invincible this season almost. So props to them. Great team. Happy for you, Christian, and deservingly so of the Premier League title.
This Liverpool team just oozes class. They ooze quality. Throughout the season, it just seemed like, when were they going to drop points? When were they going to lose eventually? Watford was the team that was able to do that. But it seemed like every time they went onto the field, they were the overwhelming favorites. From the front to the back, back to the front even, from Alisson in goal being the best keeper in the Prem, possibly the best in the world, arguably. And then the defense, obviously, Virgil van Dijk, like Joe said, Ballon d'Or candidate as a center back. Right back, Trent Alexander-Arnold, amazing. Right back, young, crossing abilities, almost second to none, really. Even Robertson on the left side being great. And then the midfield three of Wijnaldum, Fabinho, and Henderson, the captain. Just that engine in the midfield that always keeps everything going, connecting defense to offense. And then, that attack that Firmino, Salah, and Mane, lethal at times, just showing that they're probably one of the best front threes in the world, really. If they're up there with everyone else. Mane, I think, is world class, personally. I think Firmino, as a center forward, kind of like a false nine almost, just able to connect play. Oh, my goodness, I'm sorry. But just trying to, I guess, Firmino seems like the kind of guy where I think Joe said you're right. Liverpool fans almost overrate him, and people think other non-Spurs fans think he's a bad player. I think he's quality. I think that he's one of the better forwards in the Prem. I don't know about Europe-wise because it gets really tough, but when he brought him this, the range. But Firmino is a great player, and Klopp is the best manager, in my opinion, in Europe and the world. He's shown it over the last 2 seasons. Could have won the Prem last season too, but won the Champions League instead. I think that's a good return. Liverpool's shown why they're the best team. And, they had their ups and downs, obviously, but mostly ups. They're a quality team that is going to be good for years to come, really.
Yeah, just to stem off that, it's going to be interesting to see what we do in the market now. Obviously, we didn't make any big moves going into this season. I don't remember who our biggest signing was, but there's nobody that's played big minutes. I guess Minamino in the January transfer window, which was a steal, I believe around 11 million from Salzburg, who we were in a group with in the Champions League. But overall, we didn't really make moves. We just kept the same team, same tactics, same everything. Nothing changed, really. And Klopp just said, let's play our exact formation, our 4-3-3 with the 3 engines in the midfield. And you have Firmino as a false 9, and then you say, all right, give the ball to Salah, give the ball to Mane, and score your goals, and then we'll get our goals from Henderson, Fabinho, the couple goals they'll get. That's fine. But overall, I think it's interesting to see what we would have been had the Champions League. The crazy game against Barcelona never happened. Would this happen? I mean, it's possible, but I don't know if you can say in a definite 100% certainty that if we don't get that 4-0 win at home against Barcelona in the second leg to get to the final against Tottenham Hotspur, would we be the same team? I don't know. It's interesting to see, but overall this season, I think the way we went out in the other competitions kind of stung at the time. But looking at it now over anything, and from somebody that doesn't even live in Liverpool and live in England to experience the 30 years of drought, it's remarkable just for me living in North Haledon, New Jersey, and not even getting to like physically feel the power of that. And who knows what it'll be like when we get a parade. They obviously had their whole thousands of people around the stadium the night it happened, but I think it's just remarkable to see what Klopp's done. People are talking about, could this be the second coming of Sir Alex Ferguson in a big stretch of time? It's going to come down to whether the ownership and everybody backs the team and stuff, because you're looking at the front three. They're all 28 years old. You're looking at the midfield. They're all pretty much around that area. The youngest people in the team are Trent Alexander-Arnold, that's right back. You have Joe Gomez, who's 23 years old, as the center back. I don't know what Joe Gomez will be like when he's the number one center back, if he ever gets to that point with Liverpool, if they don't bring somebody else in that's better. Because anybody next to Virgil van Dijk's going to look like a better center back, besides Dejan Lovren, who needs to get out of the club immediately. But
God awful.
Matip has looked good when he's next to him. There's other people that have looked good next to Virgil, especially in a Liverpool shirt. But overall, there's not really a lot of youth. Like, you're looking at teams, for example, Chelsea, a ton of youth. Billy Gilmore, you have Mason Mount, Christian Pulisic, the list goes on. Manchester United, 18-year-old Mason Greenwood, you have Brandon Williams, Martial, or I don't know how old is Martial, but it's Rashford, 22 years old. There's a lot of teams that are going to come attack Liverpool at the top. You've even Manchester City, they're still going to be there, but there's teams that have youth. You still, I mean, for you guys, Arsenal and Spurs, there's some youth mixed in there. Like, Liverpool don't really have a strong academy at the moment. You have academy graduates like Alexander-Arnold, for example. But why did you leave? Anyway, but now he's coming. But yeah, I think that overall the academy for Liverpool isn't as strong as these other teams in the league. And for us to stay at the top and get to a point where we're title after title or being in the race every single year for a stretch like Ferguson had Manchester United for 2 decades almost, it's going to take backing from the thing. And the fact that we didn't sign Timo Werner should come as a little of a concern for Liverpool fans in general, because you're looking at a team that couldn't sign somebody for around a $50 pound release clause. Like, that doesn't make sense. And it's weird because a couple seasons ago, you decided to go buy Alisson for a ton of money. You decided to buy Virgil van Dijk for a ton of money. Salah and Mane weren't expensive, but they weren't cheap either. They were in that 30 mil pound range. Why can't you spend $50 to get depth in the attack that you so desperately need? Because your fourth string forward is Divock Origi. I love him. I love the things he's done for us, the great clutch goals he scored. But really, as the so-and-so best team in Premier League, the best team in Europe, wherever you want to categorize them, your fourth best forward, in all honesty, cannot be Divock Origi. The dude's young. The dude's, I think, 24, 25. But if you want to stay at the top, you need a guy like Timo Werner to be pressing on Salah and Mane and saying, okay, your spot's not confirmed. Your spot's not a guarantee every Saturday, Sunday. You need to have them competing at a point where, like, for example, City, obviously they have a different structure and ownership, and the money just flows and flows and flows. But last year you have Leroy Sané, you have Raheem Sterling, you have Mahrez, Guerrero, Jesus. That's so much depth, and they're all competing. And yes, you have Sané, who's going to leave now for Bayern in the summer, but that's the kind of depth you need to stay at the top. Because obviously I haven't watched the Premier League since Sir Alex Ferguson was there, but I'm sure they had a lot of depth and competition up front in the midfield. No matter where it is, I think the only place where you can say there's real competition every single week is the midfield, which is kind of a stretch because Naby Keita really hasn't sat in and like gotten comfortable with us yet, but he's still very good. You have Oxlade-Chamberlain. You have James Milner, who's one of the best professionals. He's a class professional. But overall, I'm just interested to see what we do in the future, and I want to see what you guys think on their future of Liverpool, I guess.
Yeah. So sorry for cutting out. I don't know what happened with my Wi-Fi, but yeah, I think that it kind of sounds like what you're saying with what your board's doing. It sounds a little bit like what we kind of had at Spurs, where we just didn't want we don't sign depth. You're kind of content. You guys looked very good, so like, why should we spend more money? We're bringing a cash cow in. We have a very good team. That's what it sounds like to me. And from an economic sense, I kind of understand where they're coming from. Why would I spend more money? My team just won the Champions League. My club's now just won the Premier League. Why would I spend money? It doesn't make sense, right? But I mean, that could come at a cost. I mean, these players are getting older, and I think at some point you want to offload them before they get too old while they still have some years in the contract, so you can make max profit off them and then reinvest it in your team. So I think soon you're gonna see a Salah get sold. You're gonna see Mane get sold soon. You're gonna see Firmino get sold soon. And I think it all depends on how does your team reinvest that in. And I think they should start reinvesting now, so it's not all at one shot. Because if it's all at one shot, your team's gonna get screwed. You got to do it in waves. And I think that you should start trying to see who you can buy to replace some of these guys and ease them in, like the Minamino buy. He's probably going to be replacing Salah at some point, and I think they're doing a good job of easing him into games and getting him to learn the system. So it's going to be interesting to see where Liverpool goes, and they could honestly be the dominant force for a while. I personally don't think Klopp is going to get to the levels of Sir Alexander. But I think he's going to be a manager that's going to be a force to reckon with in the Prem for a while. I mean, it'll be interesting to see when Barcelona comes calling, when Real Madrid comes calling at some point, inevitably, if he moves. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I think Liverpool. I think they're at a point where this is a good problem to have for Liverpool. You're so successful. How do you sustain the success? This is a problem you want to have for Liverpool. How more deep can we get? Not how do we get good. It's how do we maintain being good. It's better than where, me and Joe are at, where Arsenal and Spurs have to figure out how to get to that point, how to be good enough. The problems that Liverpool are having is how many people can we get to stay good? And, Liverpool has the quality. I think they have Curtis Jones coming through, Nico Williams, Harvey Elliott. Quality players that you don't know could be the future of Liverpool. They may move elsewhere with their aging attack kind of. But really, this Liverpool team looks like they are going to be good for at least another year or two at least. After that, we don't know. We don't know. The league can be completely different in the next 2 years. City may be still a force to reckon with because of how much money they have. Chelsea has a good amount of money coming through with their ban being lifted, have a lot of money. And who knows, maybe Wolves can break through, Leicester can break through, become one of those top 16, top 7 teams. And Arsenal and Spurs are going to be there still. How good they're going to be, we don't know. But it's up to Liverpool to kind of continue to be that dominant force in the league. And it's either they got to invest in their youth, make sure the academy is in tip-top shape, or they got to invest elsewhere. Timo Werner would be a big signing for them for depth. And maybe, this summer and into next winter, getting big signings in that are going to be able to back up their guys now, but down the line in 2 years, be those starting guys that are now top of the league trying to push for more trophies. So, yeah, this is a good problem to have here at Liverpool. I wish Arsenal had these problems, but we don't. But, yeah.
Yeah, all right. So that's all we got for us today. Just please like, subscribe, and just check out us on the Wingers and Defenders as well, which I'll put in the link in the description. Plenty of episodes there talking about football in not only England, but in our last episode, we also talked about Barcelona and the La Liga. But just check us out for more videos and just stay tuned.